Hi, Deb Severson here, and welcome to today's Cycle of Transformation. In just a few moments, you'll have an opportunity to listen to a coaching conversation between myself and Barbara. Barbara is an executive who has been out working in senior levels for many years and recently has found herself in transition, both as a result of reorganization in the company that she was working in, as well as her personal life. She's literally on the eve of expecting a new baby. During this conversation, Barbara and I really explore what the definitions that we have of being successful in our professional lives, and how, as we go through different transitions, other areas of our life become important. How do we weigh through those really tough decisions? How do we ensure that we're thinking through all the pieces of our lives and what we really want to be able to have full success? And so I hope you'll enjoy this segment. It lasts about 20 minutes. And thank you for joining us today. Hi, Barbara. Thanks for joining me today. I'm looking forward to spending a little time with you, and I know you have a specific coaching topic in mind. Do you want to just go ahead and give me the short what the priority is for you today?
Sure. So I'd like to discuss sort of what my definition around professional success is going to be moving forward, given that I've got some shifting personal priorities on the home front with the impending arrival of a new baby, and to just sort of how to balance those professional endeavors with, my personal goals and responsibilities, and really defining what success is going to look like in the near term, being the next 12 to 18 months versus projecting out a little farther beyond that.
Great. And I know from our earlier discussion that you're also a bit in a transition place. So how this plays out is immediately really relevant in terms of your choices about career. There's a couple different options that you might choose to make. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, potentially transitioning from, a more conventional Monday through Friday type work schedule to, freelance contracting work and working remotely. And so, whether that's going to be something that I dive in with both feet, or, look at more traditional opportunities in the months to come, that's still a big question mark for me.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start by just diving in. You mentioned the definition of what professional success looks like to you, and that's a value I know that you hold as very important. I think through your career you've had a lot of drive and a lot of passion for doing work for a variety of reasons. So maybe start by talking to me a bit about your perspective on what professional success does look like.
Sure. So in the past, I was, very motivated to be highly visible, both within my organization and out in the community and in industry organizations. So, for a long time, I really defined success as, I guess success looked like, being out 3 or sometimes 4 nights a week at various functions, and, really selling both the organization that I was with at the time, and then just really also myself, and growing my network, here in Denver, and, establishing myself as, really an up-and-coming professional. And so, now, given that I've got, new priorities on the home front, and I'm, no longer really willing to devote 3 or 4 nights of my, work week to being away from home, I'm sort of, I guess not struggling, but grappling with, what success is going to look like for me now. And so, beyond getting paid, which, nobody's working for free. So beyond that, where am I going to really derive that professional satisfaction? Since it's not going to look exactly like it's looked in the past.
Right. I'm curious whether or not your definition, since we're talking about definitions and some of the words, if active and that 3 to 4 nights a week has to be part of visible, up and coming professional. Do you see those things as needing to coexist together?
I do, just because I don't know I'm not familiar with other models. Certainly there are colleagues and peers in my network who I've spoke with that I get ideas from and use as sounding boards, who have gone through similar transitions, both on the personal front and then in terms of professional changes as well. So, talking to them and getting ideas of what else is out there. But, as far as what I know firsthand, that's what it's always looked like for me.
Yeah, and I also, just to look back at the conversation we had earlier today, I know you mentioned, for example, there are places that might expect someone at that high executive level to work 70 or 80 hours a week. And that clearly would be a challenge for you as a new mom.
Yeah, I mean, had I been in that same interview, 3 or 5 years ago, I would have thought, wow, that's, no matter what way you slice it, that's still a pretty, heavy time commitment. But at the time I would have thought, I can do this for the next, 5 years and, really establish myself and make a lot of good connections and, be compensated well and, really take myself to the next level, and this will be okay and I can do this. Versus now it's, show me the door. This just isn't going to work. And it's I'm no longer willing to, figure out how to make it work.
Exactly. So in your mind, as you, look, and of course you're expecting the baby really soon, like in the next week. But if you were to look, it's a little hard to look out into the future, probably beyond what's happening right now. But if you were, I think you mentioned like maybe 6, 12, 18 months down the road, during this time frame in your life, what do you want it to look like in terms of time spent away from home?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit more difficult for me to define. After having spent the last, 4 months of this pregnancy doing freelance and contract work and, really for the first time experiencing the flexibility and perks that come with, running your own ship and kind of being your own boss, I would love to continue to cultivate and grow my client base there, grow my skill sets, around the types of contracting freelance work that I'm doing, and really establish myself on that front and work toward, growing my own business versus growing somebody else's business. So, in a perfect world, that is where I would like to head. That said, if, on the home front, we get to a point where we say, okay, the numbers aren't working, we need to make some changes in order to, maintain lifestyles and, hit the grocery store on a regular basis, then I don't know.
Right.
That would be really difficult. and I hope it's not a bridge that, I'd have to cross before 6 months. But, if it were, it would be something that, I'd really have to look at from all sides, and it would be tough.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different values, it sounds like, that are at play, like flexibility, having that opportunity to do that work and still be able to get the balance. I think you said earlier, but with your personal life and goals. So flexibility is another important consideration.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect situation, it's hard because you want both. You want it all, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I want to strike a balance. I am absolutely still very professionally ambitious. I know that I need to have stimulating adult conversations, and I enjoy the work that I do, and so it's not something that I want to. Certainly not something I want to walk away from, and really not something that I want to, pause or, put on the back burner and forget about. The flip side of that is that, I do, need and want that flexibility to, be successful professionally and do good work, but, do it according to, my own schedule and figure out what's going to work for our family. And, maybe 8 to 5 doesn't work, but, some time on the weekends or in the evenings does. And so to have the flexibility to tune my schedule and, still deliver on time and deliver high quality, but to do it, in a less conventional way is really what I'm striving for.
Yeah. And so in terms of the visibility, let me go back to that for a minute, because it sounds like that's one of the things in the past that was really important to you. How visible will you need to be to get that sort of need met?
Yeah, that was something I really enjoyed in my last position, and I think it, I know that it benefited me, hugely, because I'm sort of reaping what I've sowed in the contracting and freelance world, because a lot of these relationships were ones that were originally cultivated as a result of having, been visible and been active in these different organizations. So, I think that in the short term, that is something that, I'm willing to place less emphasis on. I mean, it's difficult to project how I'm going to feel, in the next week or month or 6 months. But I can't honestly imagine that I'm going to have, just loads of energy to get dressed up and drive downtown and, network. So,
right.
In the very near term, that's not where I plan to put a lot of my effort. But, as things change and as I, have more energy and flexibility personally, it is something that, I would like to get back into. And in terms of commitment, I think that, we'll just have to see. It's difficult to say.
Sure, it absolutely is. There's a lot of things that are going to change in the next few weeks. And I would throw out, does it have to be all or nothing? So does visibility have to be, 4 nights a week? Or at some point you might at least think, what if it's only one or every other week? Maybe there's some ways you can keep your toe in the water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious also, I have another a question for you around the future. And again, I know there's a lot of uncertainty and unknown as you're bringing this new baby into the world. What when you mentioned earlier that having a more unconventional and sort of flexible schedule, like how do you imagine it right now? Like what, again, I know we can't really identify the perfect world, but if you could, what would it look like?
You know, in a perfect world, I would love to stay busy full time with, once we're through the first few weeks. So assuming like a sort of normal-ish maternity leave as if you were at, a traditional job. But after that, I'd like to stay busy, full time doing the freelance and contract work. And in terms of logistics, I recognize that, I don't think that you can, just because you're working from home, you can also be parenting from home simultaneously. I think that, probably flip a little both on the parenting and the work side. So, I'd love to, find maybe like a mother's helper or a nanny, for when the baby is small. And then, even though I would still be working from home, I think that, socialization and the skills acquired, by being in a group setting are really invaluable to kids. And so, I would still look to, secure some kind of childcare. I mean, certainly wouldn't want it to be for 70 hours a week, like in the instance of the job that,
right.
I interviewed for several months back. But, to still have, an extra set of hands and somebody who, is able to just help with day-to-day tasks so that I am able to be, effective from home. And, particularly when growing, my own business, the referrals and word of mouth I recognize are going to be huge. And so if I'm not, delivering high quality work or not, adhering to schedules, I recognize that, I'm doing myself more harm than good there. So, so in the perfect world, I would like to, be staying busy full time here, have, a nanny's helper, or I'm fortunate enough to have family here locally who, are willing to help a few days a week. And, but just to be, more present than I would be if I were in an office.
Right.
And my little guy was in a daycare.
So if there were anything that could derail that for you, like that sort of perfect scenario, what would it be?
Really, it would financial, financial restrictions, and ultimately, like lots of other, mothers and fathers and parents do, you do what you have to do. And, I certainly, if my feet were to the fire, I would do what we needed to do in order to, secure ourselves financially. And so, that would be really the one factor that could change the plan.
How clear are you on how much you'll have to bring in independently as a consultant to be able to make the financial side work?
So not clear enough to be, perfectly candid. Originally I made these connections and started picking up freelance projects, while interviewing, and truly, after being laid off at 6.5 months pregnant, I would have thought 100% that I would have started a new, traditional full-time position prior to delivery, and that then, I would deliver and have, some kind of maternity leave, and then be going back to traditional full-time work. Obviously that's not the way it's played out. And, there are a number of pros that make me, grateful in a lot of ways that is not the way that things have happened. And so it's so now, I'm in the boat of, it's the phone has just kept ringing and emails have just kept coming. And so, I'm thinking, wow, I could, really do this, just do this. And that's suddenly a viable option. But in terms of putting a number to it and saying, okay, this is really where our threshold is, we haven't done that as a family, in part because there are a number of financial unknowns that come with adding a new member to the family.
Sure. Absolutely. So if in fact, your ideal future right now looks like, at least for the near term, whether that's 12 months or 18 months or 5 years, ideally it would be for you to be independent, is really what I heard you say, so that you have the flexibility and you pursue your professional ambition a little bit differently, right? And at least for the time being. So if that's the case, then, and I know you've got this other obviously huge commitment in the next few weeks, which is going to take some time, I'm wondering, what's your plan, or how will you go about getting your arms around the financial side of it?
I would love, and as it's kind of ironic because as financially minded and savvy as I am, and even prior to having been home, I've always been the sort of household financial manager. I don't know yet, and it's, I think, going to be something that certainly I'm going to need to wrap my arms around and figure out. But with with everything in flux and so much changing, and recently I've been spending time on the phone with insurance companies, and just figuring out what our coverage exactly looks like. And with all of the moving parts, I've not formalized a plan as to how I'm going to really attack that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering whether that's because of all the moving parts, or is there any part of this that it's like once you do that, you're really committing to being out on your own? Is there the flux around the decision, is really my question.
Yeah, that's 100% fair, because as much as, like I said, as much as I love the kind of work that I'm doing as a contractor, and the kind of flexibility that comes with working in this type of a setup, I can't resist still sending a resume out there every once in a while. And as a result, I've got several sort of irons in the fire that may potentially become offers this spring. And so what will I do if one or more of those does?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's difficult, because it's a safe decision, and my traditional self would say, oh my gosh, you've got to go with the paycheck. You've got to go with really, securing things and knowing what you can depend on. But, the flip side of that coin is that then, am I walking away from all of the work that I've been doing? And by work, I mean, relationship building and, clients, securing clients and that kind of thing. Am I walking away from all of that?
Right.
And if in, 6 months or 12 months or however long I decide maybe that wasn't the right thing, is it going to be too late to backtrack and go back and rekindle, the fire that I've got going right now?
So what I'm really hearing is that you're not necessarily completely ready to commit 100% to being independent versus, having the paycheck. And for you to be able to really make the best decision that really considers all of the priorities that you have, you're going to have the facts. So two things I would say. First, I'm going to challenge you, and again, I know I'm not going to give you a deadline because you've got your short-term situation is kind of tough to commit to anything like that. But I am going to challenge you to just put the numbers together. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but at least then you'll know what you're saying yes or no to.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's a great exercise.
So that would be the first one. And again, as I said, typically I would press you into a date, but I think you've got enough on your plate to try to set that date right now. And then the second thing I would say is I just would, again, offer, as we talked this morning, that once you get those numbers together, if you want a sounding board, I'd be happy to spend some more time with you to sort through the pros and cons of both solutions a little bit deeper. But it feels to me like that's your next step. Would you take that challenge?
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely the natural next thing to do, and that'll really help put some parameters around what the expectations are and where we need to be to make things work.
Yeah. Well, good. And you and I will stay in touch at some level. And again, that offer of help is there if you want another sounding board just to sort through that next level of decisioning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really appreciate that. And I think that it's something I would, absolutely like to take you up on.
Well, with that, I'll go ahead since our time is up, and I'll thank you so much for sharing the kinds of, challenges and decisions that we all are making all the time, where we're weighing our family and our financial well-being and also, the things we want to accomplish in the world. All those things have to come together in some form or fashion that works. So thanks for putting it out there.
Oh, you bet. Thank you.